For a message to be meaningful to its intended audience, it needs to be culturally relevant. States with large Native populations have sought to create culturally relevant outreach materials to increase access and enrollment of American Indians and Alaskan Natives in Medicaid and CHIP. Some of these materials were more successful than others. It is important to keep in mind when creating culturally relevant outreach materials that though a particular culture may seem dramatically different to an outsider, to the insider, it is like air, pervasive and unconsciously accepted. This is one reason why it can get tricky to create good culturally relevant materials. When creating outreach materials for American Indians and Alaskan Natives, it gets even more complicated. It is important to remember that Native culture is very diverse. In fact, it has been estimated that perhaps half of all the cultural diversity in the United States results from differences among the nation's Native tribes. So there is a danger that we can ignore the diversity among Native people in the development of culturally relevant outreach materials and wind up stereotyping the end user. It is important to understand the complexity and uniqueness of Native communities, families, and traditions. The opportunity, on the other hand, is the possibility of an exceptionally persuasive message of why eligible people should enroll in Medicaid or enroll their children in CHIP. This is why it is critical for someone who is attempting to develop culturally relevant outreach materials to understand the target audience. Here are some things to think about when creating culturally relevant outreach materials. First, a culture supplies ready answers to address many questions that day-to-day life presents. It is important to understand those answers if you want to create a message that makes sense to the end user. In other words, for Native communities to embrace a message, the message must relate to the traditional values of the communities. Second, in designing the appearance of materials, keep in mind that culture influences how visual signals, such as images, colors, and fonts, will be received. And third, culturally relevant outreach materials should employ the language of the target population, whether that is a nuance in the use of English or the need to use a native tongue.